Another one of the comedians from the film is going to join us. Please join us up front. Aron Krader. Let's hear it for Aron. I believe he's the dreamy one. Is that right? Yes. He is dreamy.
Sharing everything. Not bad. You don't get a mic now.
So what do you guys think of the film?
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, I'm glad that people respond and laugh, and hopefully we'll have some good questions too, because you're going to have some questions.
So I'll ask a few questions, and then we'll open it up for a larger Q&A. I just want to start with a question about your own sort of personal journeys. What I've noticed working with students is that growing up, my generation, Muslim American students were expected to be doctors and engineers. Now our students are lawyers, and they're journalists, and they want to make films, et cetera, et cetera. Increasingly, they're more role models for them. So what was your journey like, both of you, to comedy? And I know you went through law school to get there. And what was the reaction of your family, your community, et cetera?
I was a lawyer because my parents thought it was a good thing to be a lawyer, which makes a lot of sense, because that's what parents think. They want you to get a secure career. But also I was active in politics, so it made sense to me, and it was a good pedigree to have, to be a lawyer. There was a point where I just did not enjoy being a lawyer anymore. It was probably like day one of being a lawyer. I'm like, this is horrible. I'm like, what am I doing? Because I only went to law school, honestly, because I wanted to run for office and thought it would be a great background to have. That's all it was for. And when I started to practice, I did not enjoy it. It was not a good fit for me. And I realized I was more creative than I thought I was. And I started doing stand-up comedy at night. And the first show I ever did was the Funniest Lawyer Association show by the New Jersey Bar Association. And I didn't even win. So I didn't win at all, but I still enjoyed it. And so my transition then, little by little, I got a job at NBC as a page, and then I got hired at Saturday Night Live, and I worked at Saturday Night Live for 8 years. I did legal-related stuff, but I wasn't a lawyer. I did rights and clearance, administration. And by the way, how many USC students are here? How many students? How many are in the film school here? Few. All right, good. Don't be difficult with any questions afterward. But so that was it. And then there's no set path for comedy. People come from all different things. So that was my journey. And then to comedy and filmmaking and everything else I've been doing.
I want to hear more about the clearances part. What was that? Standards and practices? Clearances? Rights and clearances. Wouldn't you guys like to spend an hour talking about rights and clearances? That would be more interesting. I didn't have a lot of choices. My hair wouldn't go any way I wanted it to go, like jeans. Wouldn't fit in a law school. My brother's actually going to USC here. He was I think he was a sophomore when I moved out here to LA in '93. Yeah. My dad went here as well. So I moved out. I was just 19 and I moved out. My brother was living out here going to school, and I knew I wanted to do something creative, and knew probably that I wanted to secretly try to do stand-up comedy, and kind of aimless. But my parents were very supportive, a little bit different. My mom's a Mormon from Utah. My dad's Palestinian from Utah as well. Different towns, but they found each other. They hooked up in college, and then he converted. He tried to raise us Mormon, and I didn't go that direction, and I couldn't be Muslim, and I couldn't just, it was just I was a natural kind of cynic. It just draws you in with comedy. But they were really supportive is the answer, generally. They didn't make me wear hijab.
Well, both of you are children of interfaith marriages, and yet when you go out on this tour, you are sort of representing a face of Islam in the United States. And we saw even amongst the comedians some contestation in terms of what does it mean to be an authentic Muslim, what does it mean to be a good Muslim, and the politics of that as it played out in the different audiences that you encountered. So can you talk a little bit about that, your own Muslim identity, how that may inform your art, and the diversity of Muslim identities that you've encountered in your career and in your audiences?
Sure. Can I just say one thing I forgot to say before? We were in the Albert Broccoli Theater. Yeah. He was the James Bond producer. And I've joked in my act for years that I wanted a Muslim James Bond. This is one of my dreams. So instead of saying Bond, James Bond, he comes out and he goes, Abdullah. Abdullah, Abdullah. So it's great to finally be in Albert Broccoli's room. This is as close as we're going to get to that. I think, whenever you deal with religion and you put the word Muslims or any faith in the title of a movie, there's a sense of responsibility you have because you're on some level representing that faith. But at the same time, we didn't put the term Muslim in the title because we wanted to represent the faith. We did it because it was provocative. It's based on the British are coming, and then a movie called The Russians Are Coming. in the 60s, so it's really based on a movie from the 60s. The Russians are coming, and that's why some of the texture and the fonts and stuff, we have like a 60s type of vibe going on purpose for that. Yeah, the music, kind of swing music, so like 60s type of groovy music. So that was our point. However, though, we try to, myself and Nagin, try to intentionally have what we thought was a spectrum of the American face of Islam. When you have like Preacher Moss, who prays 5 times a day, very pious, to Nagin, who's certainly just culturally Muslim, but raised by 2 Muslim parents, born in Iran, her parents. And so Islam is a big part of her life, even though now there's not part of the theological part of it, but culturally that's part of her faith. And Americans, we've all seen Christians who are just culturally Christian and Jews who are culturally Jewish, but we haven't seen Muslims who are just culturally Muslim, who are, like, they don't do anything religious, but it's part of who they are. And it's still, and if you ask them, they say, sure, I'm Muslim. Same way you ask someone who's Christian, never goes to church, I'm Christian, and they're proud of that. So that was the thing. And we've had some issues internally with some conservative Muslims, not a lot, but some have been critical of Nagin especially. She gets some angry, still to this day, just last week, got some angry hate mail from
mostly me,
Aron. So so we have, and I was saying before tonight, we had a screening for another college that the college administration booked us, and just today it was canceled because the Muslim student group objected to the film. And they said, wow. So I emailed the head of the MSA and said, brother, we got to talk. Come on, let's have a conversation about this. And because there's a difference. Because if you want to, and I said, you come on the panel, you can say, the Muslims in the film don't represent you. That's fine. I'm with you 100%. We don't want to represent everyone. We just want to start a conversation and break down stereotypes and misconceptions about Muslims. But I want them to come on the panel and join us. So they're considering that now. And because I'm not for any way silencing things you don't like. I'm for objecting to them, writing articles about them, but not silence them, especially anything that's art or freedom of expression is just too important to me. And I try to make that case to them in a very nice, polite way. So hopefully we'll see what happens.
What about you, Tom?
I got nothing.
Nothing.
What are you talking about?
Talking about representing Islam, and
no, it's true. I mean, we've talked about it a lot. How we can't represent everybody, and there's a lot of diversity just within Muslims. All Muslims aren't Arabs, and we're Palestinian, and there's differences between us and some crazy Libyans we've met along the way, So we always will ask when we meet another performer, somebody who looks like they might be Middle Eastern, like, what is your background? Well, where are you from? And then it's, well, are you Christian or Muslim? Because it makes a difference, it completely changes, who your family and your heritage and everything else that you can relate to. So it's always a question I ask people when I kind of have a conversation with them is what was their religious background. Regardless of what you believe now, it's who you came from.
Mm-hmm. You not only went to the American South as Muslim Americans, you also toured the Middle East and Saudi Arabia, I believe both of you went to. What was that like? What was the reaction? What surprised you?
The size, they had like a mosque that was like the size of a football stadium. It's the Mecca of Mecca is what the place is. It's really the center of. Yeah, it was an experience, though. It was really great. And the crowds are the same everywhere you go. They laugh and they're fun and they just want to have a good time. And they might be a little more innocent, a little more, than Americans, but they're great. They're good crowds. Girls, guys, everybody.
It really, I'll be honest, we've gone many times, and we taught comedy workshops across the Middle East, free comedy workshops wherever we went, in Saudi, Egypt, Lebanon, across the region, Dubai, because we want to try to give something back to the people who live in the region. We didn't want to be seen as Western imports. We're part of them. Our heritage is Arab, and we feel a connection to the people there. It also feeds your ego, because when you go to the Middle East, like Saudi, we did a show, me and Aron, 1,000 people came. But they don't even have movie theaters, so we're competing with nothing. We're competing with staying home and watching television. That's what we're competing with. And we've done shows in other countries. With Egypt, we did a show, 4,000 people, 2 shows, 2,000 people, back-to-back shows. And I'm not saying we're famous there. We're just a little known, and it was a novelty to see Arab Americans do comedy talking about issues about being Arab. And the audiences would laugh at jokes about them, about their culture. And even, in a way, it's intertwined. Arab culture is intertwined with Islamic culture. So at some level, you are making fun of Islam at some levels, and they are laughing, and they have no problems with it. In Saudi, Egypt, the young people are young people. And it gives you, it heartens you to go there and see these young people laughing at the same jokes American audiences are laughing at the same place. And the world's much smaller because of YouTube and entertainment media. And they get the Daily Show there every night, and it comes out a night later through premium cable, and they get Colbert, and they see everything on YouTube. Mm-hmm. So the world's gotten smaller. They love Seinfeld.
Love Seinfeld. Raymond. They love Raymond.
Love
Ray Romano. Yeah, they do. They love all the same TV shows, and they watch YouTube constantly. And I think, I don't know what restrictions. They're probably on porn, right, on the video, on the internet. But they watch everything. They see all the same things we do. They're totally connected, totally tech frenzied too. They have new phones out before they come out. I mean, they have everything. So there's that part, and it really was the first challenge Dean and I, when we met, over a decade ago, it was a long time ago. We were just wondering if Arabs had a sense of humor about themselves, and we were testing the waters, trying to go, most of our material was, how can I just connect to a normal crowd and be Middle Eastern and maybe make a connection? Just talking to a white crowd. Then it became, there's Arab and Middle Eastern people that will come and see us. How do we relate to them in this way? And will they laugh at themselves? And along the way, they mostly have they're just like a normal group of people, no big deal. Laugh at themselves, hilarious, it's fun. And the well is deep, Nobody's really gone to a lot of these places. So, there's a long ways to go, I think.
We're here at what I call the best film school in the world, and obviously there's some young filmmakers here. Dean, can you talk about the process of making this film? You went into it not knowing how the tour would go, right. And yet you and Yin go on this emotional journey. There is a narrative arc. How did you find this story?
Here's the truth, and for anybody filmmaker here, for documentary filmmaker, whatever your idea is about what you're going to find, if you're not doing something with archival footage, but you're actually going out to see what you're going to experience, be flexible, because things might change. We thought we were going to find a lot of anger. We thought we were going to have people chasing us with fire and destroying our cars. In fact, we were hoping for that. That was the drama we wanted for the film. The reality was we did not find that. So the arc was not us changing people. The arc was us being changed by our own experience. That we became aware that, except for the right-wing people you see on TV, the average person really did not give a crap at all about Muslims. They're not sitting around going, I hate Muslims or something like that. They're just like, they might not love Muslims, but they don't care. It's not part of their lives. Like, I don't care. Except for the isolated controversies about mosques. So that was the eye-opening thing for us. So it made our movie change. So when we went out, we thought we were going to find a lot more anger. We didn't. The movie changed. The ending changed. And we had an idea what the ending was going to be. I never made a film before. Nagin had made a couple. And I was lucky to work with someone like that who had experience. It's an extremely hard process. As someone who didn't know what I was getting into, I'd only worked on television, which, it was much easier. I produced stuff for Comedy Central before and things. It's much quicker. It's much more immediate television. It's beautiful like that. Saturday Night Live was the quintessential immediacy. Things would get pitched on Monday, they'd be on national TV on Saturday night. It was remarkable. Film, oh my God, it's horrible. In that it takes years, and no one sees it until years later, and you just hope it's good. And still watching it with you guys, I watch a little bit, I'm like, that should be changed. Why do we leave that in there? So that's the struggle of it. Film is challenging, but it's a great medium, and it was really exciting. And I don't know if I'll ever make a documentary, but I'd like to make a scripted, like everyone, I've written screenplays, and you hope to make one and two.
I just like to say, I was just glad these guys took a stab at doing something that's funny, because I think most of the films that we grew up, if we saw films, it was like an Arab at the ADC convention, or you'd see some film, or it would be some sort of thing that got passed around, and you get your hands on a DVD, and it was a Arab-centric, Palestinian-centric, whatever sort of, and it was suffering. It was a lot of suffering and crying. It was very dramatic, and it was powerful. And more movies should be made all the time like that, but it is nice to have variety there. The Palestinian story, or Arab or Muslim in a third world situation or in a war zone, can also have some sort of humor or some sort of different side besides writing poems about olive trees.
Palestinians love olive trees, that's why that's funny. So.
One more question.
No disrespect to Khalil Gibran.
One more question, and we'll open it up for Q&A with the audience. Can you, for the aspiring filmmaker, documentarian, comedians in the audience, what advice would you give them that you learned through this process?
Go after your dreams. I know it sounds cliche, but go after it. Take a chance. Don't wait another day. Don't wait for 5 years. Don't plan that. Do it now. If you want to be a comedian, go to open mic tomorrow or the next day. If you want to make films, you guys are in school now, so you're already taking that first step. It's too many people defer their dreams, and then it withers and dies, the famous thing. So my biggest thing is, I used to be a lawyer. I gave it up. I gave up a good career, And I'm not patting myself on the back, but I couldn't live another day making good living doing something I hated. I'd rather fail at something I loved than succeed at something I didn't care about. So the one thing I would say is whatever your dreams are, it does not have to be in this field. But if your dreams are to be in this field, you can make it. It just takes time and a lot of hard work. It's really, I know so many talented comedians, so many comedians better than me, but have no work ethic whatsoever. So I'm somehow marginally more successful than them from a financial point of view, because I hustle, hustle, hustle. This business is all about hustling, working hard, and it's hard work. It's a competitive field, but go after it. Like, don't wait another hour. I'm not kidding you. Don't wait, because before you know it, life will pass you by, and you'll make a documentary about Muslims. And that's
I saw Dane have doubts going through this process, and it took a long time, and we just spent a little brief time together, but I am kind of proud of these guys because it has been a long process, and they've seen it through, and they follow through on it, and what else can you do? There's only one way out, and it's straight through the middle. You can't go around it. You have to, if you want it, you gotta go straight through. And when you fail, you fail. Just finish the project and go, yeah, it's not a great film, and move on and make another one. You're gonna take chances if you're an artist, and that's the way. It's the nature of it.
So let's hear from the audience. If you wouldn't mind, when you ask your question, standing up, introducing yourself. And even though this is a film about religion, we ask for questions, not sermons. So let's start with this gentleman up front.
My question is, how long did it take you to make this movie?
It took we got the idea. Myself and Nagin first talked about it probably during the Ground Zero mosque controversy. That was when we were really angry about what was going on. It really struck us. So that was about 2010, 11. We first talked about it. And then we went on the road. When did we go on the road? Was it 2012? Like 2012, right. And then we got 2011. So it was about 2011 we went on the road. We did 2 legs of tours. So about 2011 when we really did photography and did everything. In 2012 we premiered the Awesome Film Festival. And then we got distribution for digital. It's easy to get digital distribution, by the way. Any filmmakers out there, you're going to find, you'll get, theatrical is really hard. We were in 5 cities. We had to self-distributed ourselves in rent theaters or get programmers to do it. Digital distribution, we got like 7 offers. I mean, because everyone will put you on iTunes now, and they'll put you on Amazon because they get a little cut, and they'll try to get you on TV. Like we just got on Netflix 3 weeks ago, and that's actually a bigger thing now. There's actually a decent amount of money they're giving. Not a lot, but there's more people on Netflix now than HBO. So, and subscription. So now it's growing. But so as a filmmaker, you can bank on that digital stuff. It's not a lot of money, but it's some money. So it took a couple of years, and it's continuing. Like we're trying to now get it on TV in Europe. That's our big thing now. It just premiered in London last week just for 2 screenings. It did really well. It was packed. They had a tube strike because they hate Muslims so much they closed the tube during. People came out. It was packed. And we had a great turnout. And I know I did a Q&A by Skype. We didn't go there. And hopefully, BBC or some other network will pick it up out there. We really hope it gets in Europe and Australia, other places across Europe.
Great. Yes, Ruben.
Ruben Firestone, Hebrew Union College and USC. I'm curious to know about the material you use in Saudi Arabia and in the Arab world and North Africa and Middle East. I can just see Nagin up there.
Nagin has not been with us in those shows. No, she's not. You have to be. Okay, so there's limits on.
And language.
Right. They do not want you, except for Lebanon. You can. Every place else, the same rules: no cursing, no sex jokes, no jokes about politics about their country. You can talk about leaders in other countries. You can talk about American presidents because they all know about American presidents. They follow American politics very closely. But no jokes about religion, and not just Islam. No jokes about Jews or Christians. No jokes. They want nothing about religion. They're conservative about religion and touchy about it. So they know the religion divides. Lebanon, the promoter said, say whatever you want, but if you make fun of Hezbollah, you're on your own. That's what they really say. I'm not kidding, they really say. So, but the interesting thing to me is that if you do a corporate gig in America, and I've gotten some corporate gigs, it's the same restrictions on content. No politics, no religion, no sex. So despotic leaders in other countries and business leaders in the United States of America have a common bond. What do you think about that?
That's exactly right. Sometimes I would fool myself in my brain and go, oh, it's just, like being on TV. Like, just don't be too dirty or, be primetime TV kind of material, and that would work. And you could talk about cultural differences and talk about religion once you eased in, but they would want to see your material written out. And I didn't have to write mine out, but somebody else did. They took my tape, and some stenographer typed it out, some assistant, and they gave it to them, and they don't like what they read. But then when they see it, they go, oh, I get it. Okay, yeah, it's a joke. It's like, yeah, it's a joke. So once they get it, they get it. And then you can keep pushing it a little bit. But at first, it was just pushing at the envelope just to be there and all that, and you kept it clean. And there is an innocence, I think, with them a little bit.
But I knew a few years ago, and Aron was very involved, we produced a comedy festival in Jordan for 3 years. And at that time, like the New York Times came and asked questions. Do you think there'll be an Arab Chris Rock or Jon Stewart? And I knew there would be, because once you unleash comedy out of the bottle, that's it. And there was a Bassem Youssef in Egypt who went to jail. He was arrested. He didn't go to jail. He, I guess, went to jail for like a day. But for his views, and now his show is basically shut down in Egypt. I mean, he was there making fun of, after Mubarak fell, he was there making fun of the government and Muslim Brotherhood, and everyone was fine at first, but then Mohammed Morsi didn't like it anymore, and they shut it down. Then Morsi's out, the new people come in, and they're actually worse on that at freedom of expression and mocking them. So then he's completely off the air now, although the government said they didn't shut it down. It was a network. It was more of a business decision from the network. In any event, his show was gone. But I think now he has a new one coming out. I'm not sure if he's shooting in Egypt anymore or not. I just know something just came up recently, but he's been off air for a while. So there are struggles there, but I always felt a sense of responsibility that stand-up comedy was in its infancy. And I didn't want to say something that hurt the movement of comedy, because now there's so many young comedians over there. Saudi Arabia has a booming comedy presence. These guys are all on YouTube. It's mostly men there. In other countries, there are some women, but not many women. Then again, in the United States, I do a show in New York City, and there's 10 comics in the show. There'll be one woman in the show. I mean, that's a typical experience, unfortunately, in America. There should be more diversity, gender, and by race and ethnicity. So that's the thing. But in the Middle East, like in the festival in Jordan, we had all different types of comics. We had Gabriel Iglesias, who's Latino. We had Sherry Davy, who's Jewish. The people in Jordan had no problem with that. We had Amy Schumer was in Dubai. I wasn't involved in that show. So they've had diversity, but they still want you to be clean. But they're kind of pushing up against the clean thing. They're getting cooler with cursing. They're not as upset. Because if you're not cursing in English, they don't feel if you're not cursing in Arabic, they don't feel it's bad.
Yeah, you can curse in English. That's God doesn't hear.
Language?
Exactly. Oh, we do our shows in English. Some comics now are doing their shows in Arabic. Egypt and Lebanon, there are some, but English is much, much more. It transcends everything. They get international people to come to the shows. People working there, volunteering, tourists would come to the show. But there aren't some. But we'll throw in some Arabic words here and there. But it's generally for everyone to understand.
Other questions, comments? Yes, Angie.
Hi, my name is Angie Sarama. I'm really happy that you guys are here. I'm president of the Muslim Student Union here at USC. Right. I just wanted to ask, how has your faith influenced the struggles that you've been through in your journey to become comedians?
Thank you for being one of the sponsors of this event.
Yeah. Our pleasure.
I think my faith is important to me in that it's really, I was raised with Christianity and Islam. My mom's Catholic, my dad's Muslim. And I was raised with both faiths. And I got older, I gravitated more to Islam after my father passed away. Probably had a memory for him, to be honest with you. But, as we did this project, and it brought me closer to God. And that's what Islam's about. It's about bringing you closer to God. So on some level, it made me more in touch with the faith on a certain level. And it was interesting because I didn't expect that to happen either. But I also am motivated so much. My faith is important. I'm also motivated by my view of what it means to be in the United States of America, what it means to be an American, what are our values in this country. And the idea of freedom of religion to me is not limited to approved faiths. It's not limited to majority faiths. It's for all of us the same. And so when I get angry about the Ground Zero Mosque, or I get angry about people harassing people who are Muslim or who are Mormon or other minorities' faiths in this country, it's not because of my faith as much as my Americanism and the fact that I think it's completely wrong and inconsistent with the values. And it's spewed by people who pretend or just camouflage themselves under the American flag. Like, I'm protecting America from Muslims. No, you're doing the exact opposite of what this country's about. So I'm motivated so much by, it's intertwined, my faith and my gratefulness to this country that accepted my father and my grandparents from Sicily, my father's Palestinian from the Middle East coming here. So it's both together.
Can I say to them? I think it's when you have, well, I grew up in a real wholesome family. The Mormons are very nice, and the Muslims in the family, I would just call them like prudes. They were prudes, you know what I mean? Like, so, but that knowing that you know, growing up feeling different, and I had a few of my best friends, two of my best friends growing up were Jewish. They sort of understood me better than everybody else. To this day, I'll meet friends that are like, so what is your family again? Like, they still don't. It wasn't a part of needing to. I didn't need to have friends that understood me in that way, I guess. But I always felt misunderstood. So there was always this place where that faith in me was this faith where they'll understand. If I could just right that wrong, if I could just point it out right, you know, it would be different. And they'd see something different. And that's where my faith is.
Other questions? Yes.
Hi, my name is Aron. I'm one of the public diplomacy students here at USC. You mentioned your families there, and I was thinking if it were me, would I be able to say some of the things Nadine had said? I don't think I would. I was wondering if your families have seen any of your stand-up in relation to this and what they think about how they react.
Sure. Nagine's parents had never seen her do stand-up comedy until the LA screening. This played for a week at the Downtown Independent Theater in the fall. They came to that, and she was so nervous that her parents were going to go crazy because they're from Iran, born there. They live in America, and they're somewhat conservative, but they really were great supporters of the film. Financially, they helped us a lot, and they were really proud of her. But she was worried about it. My family is fine with my stuff. They tolerate me doing my comedy. It's, you know, it's not like a big deal. It's not like that, and I'm pretty clean. It's just who I am. That's just what I talk about. But Negin, you know, as a woman, you're held to a different standard in comedy. As a Muslim woman, I think it's probably even more challenging, but frankly, just a woman in comedy. Sarah Silverman talks about it all the time. Janine Garofalo made that point, and she's not Muslim. It has nothing to do with the faith. It has to do with, you know, we live in a society where men, for large part, for whatever reason, don't see women as funny comedians. You hear that all the time. Even Jerry Seinfeld has problems with certain issues, I think, and I love Jerry Seinfeld, but still, it was recently a comment he made, which wasn't the worst, but it just showed like a lack of any sense that you should try to be inclusive. You're a leader in the entertainment industry, that maybe you should be inclusive. And keep in mind, you want diversity because there's strength from diversity. Diversity means better comedy, means more authenticity. So that's why it's important. But there are challenges. There's challenges. My family's been fine. Your family hates your comedy.
My family doesn't like his comedy. Dean's mom loves me. She comes out at all the shows, but my parents don't like Negin at all, or you. No, they're supportive. My parents are really supportive. Matter of fact, when I have a show in or around Washington D.C., my dad feels like he has to be there, or he'll look like a bad Muslim father. Like, I'll play like an Arab event in D.C. I played a couple of those. You know, they'll ask me to come out and perform and be a part of this function, kind of suit and tie thing, and he'll be like, well, I'll buy a table and I'll come. I'll have to be there and support you. Like, he's super nice. He's great. And I know a lot of other comics that don't have that. They, you know, that's not going to happen. So we're a little, my parents are probably a little hippie, but. What's that?
One invitation.
Oh, yeah, well, there's that. Yeah,
Any other question or comment? Oh,
Yes.
Hi, thank you for coming. My name is Amanda Rodriguez. I'm also from the Public Diplomacy Program. So you're trying to, you've been talking about how you're trying to take down stereotypes about the Muslim community to people that are not part of the Muslim community. How has these been received within the Muslim community? Because we see we have, you're not accepted in one university, here you are, yay.
Right.
How is that working for you?
Overwhelmingly, we've had great acceptance. It's not been, today was like a shocking thing that happened today. We have had some emails from some conservative people. We've had some conservative Muslims reach out to me and say, actually, like, I didn't like some of the language, but I love what you're doing. And that's mostly what we've quite frankly heard, which I understand completely. That some people don't like cursing. They don't like jokes about sex. Doesn't matter what their religion. If they're conservative, they might not like it. Overwhelmingly, the biggest supporters of our film have ultimately been people from our community who have given us money, who have supported us. But the money we raise for this film, and for the filmmakers here, it's all about money, as you know. I mean, you can have the greatest ideas. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. Because if we couldn't raise, we did this for about $150,000, $175,000. So me and Negin are in great debt financially. Like but those people who gave us the money knew they probably won't get their money back. But we're going to do everything we can to get at least a little money back to them. But it's all about raising money. But in the beginning, the money was not coming from the Muslim community. It was coming from progressives. Like, one of our biggest supporters was a progressive liberal gay guy who just loved the idea of what we were doing. And he saw the idea of how gays are demonized in America, and felt sympathy and empathy for us. And that's really, so much, and that was great for us, and I tell people all the time that. And that's why it was important for us to have that clip of Brian Fisher in the film, showing he's the guy who said Muslims and gays have the same agenda to destroy Christianity in America. That's happening all the time on American Family Association radio. That's Brian Fisher, who has a big following of millions of people. And he demonizes gays, like in ways you cannot believe it's still happening in the United States, that he still does it to this day. And Muslims, but Muslims have sort of fallen off the radar. Like, even when we met the AFA guy, that general manager said to us after off camera, he goes, Muslims, he goes, I understand you're misunderstood. He goes, but it's the gays we really have a problem with. And he thought we were going to bond with him. We're like, but I'm not going to bond with you over this. He thought we'd hate gay. Like, what's wrong with you, you idiot?
Yeah.
But it wasn't on camera.
Yeah, at least the Muslims aren't gay.
Right.
Yeah.
There are gay Muslims out there. There's no doubt. But again, this is America. And when I write articles for Daily Beast, and I've written many articles about marriage equality and saying how, as a lawyer, it's unconstitutional to ban people based on sexual orientation to get married. Again, it comes from my Americanism, because there are some Muslims that go, why do you write about that? I'm like, well, because I'm an American, and that's my touchstone, is the Constitution on a lot of things and those kind of issues. What about you? Anything?
I think when there's a group that's being persecuted, or there's a group that needs to come up, or people will get on board. I will persecute everybody, yeah. And then we will rally around those people who get persecuted. There's also, in Detroit, when we've gone before, and I've played functions, where you'll see Ford Motor Company and GM, and everybody's giving out scholarship money, and the whole community is Muslim and Middle Eastern, and you sort of see cooperation like that, and you realize what was possible. And but really, the community has galvanized and put on a good face for themselves, and I think has done a good job since 9/11 to sort of say we're American, and we're a good group, and we're a voting bloc, and they've done all the right things. I think as Arab Americans, I think they've done a pretty solid job coming up just in the last few years. Steered the ship, People get on board that ship. You know what I'm saying? No?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Adam. I'm a film student here. And I was just wondering, if you ever do make another movie, what would you do differently? Just something you've learned.
He's out, first of all, right off the bat. What would I, I watched the film in the back like 15 minutes over time, and there's so many things. I'm like, why is that in there? Like, why did that stay in there? And the thing has been locked forever. I don't think it ever ends. I think you watch it and there are things I learned that I don't even know I've learned. But if I make another film, I would go like, we're not going to do that because that didn't work. And it's really like, you see it cutting out 80 minutes. We did screenings for people, it was 120 minutes. It was like a hostage situation. Even the funny things weren't funny because the gaps were too big. And you go back and you edit, and we're getting more interviews thrown in and changing it. And it got it down to 80 minutes. And the screening is like such a rough draft, and going through that process and keeping an open mind that things, even you might love it, like, oh, that scene has to be in there, and at the end of the day you're like, that scene really doesn't have to be in there, and you got to cut it. And there's bonus features on the DVD. That's what the bonus features are for. Like all these scenes, like me and Scott Blakeman, the Jewish comic, went on Terry Jones's property. The guy who burns Korans looking for Terry Jones, and he wasn't there. And we were confronted by this weird German guy with it was very scary, right? But it really didn't fit the film, and it wasn't that funny, but it was just scary. But there was no real payoff. Like me and Scott, and I'm like a neurotic. Me and Scott's Jewish and neurotic, and I'm Arab and neurotic. So together we're like two Woody Allens. Like, they might kill us. I know what's going to happen next. And it was more funny for us than it was for. But I'm like, how can that scene not be in the film? And you're like, it's already long, and you start cutting and cutting and cutting. So I think you just keep an open mind, and if I make another film, I don't know if I'll make another documentary. I really hope to make a scripted comedy. And if I do that, I've learned things from here. But there's so much more I have to learn. I mean, it's just, that's the beauty, I guess, of filmmaking. Any kind of, like stand-up comedy. We can always make our jokes better. You can always make the film better until it's locked and you have to deliver it. So, what do you think? Anything?
I got nothing. Good luck.
Other questions? Yes, in the back.
My name is Eliza, and I'm an economics major. My question is, did you have any stereotypes that you detached yourself from, like about Muslims or Islam, as you drew closer to the Muslim identity?
No, that's an interesting question. No, it wasn't like that. I didn't have, going to the Middle East and meeting Muslims there was eye-opening to me, just because the Muslims I knew were in the States, even my cousins who were born in the Middle East. So it was a different experience. But no, I didn't have any stereotypes about fellow Muslims that I thought negative things one way or the other. There are Muslims and Christians and Jews who frustrate me, and there are atheists too. Same way, they might be conservative, and I'm like, why are you conservative? I can't believe this. And I don't mean conservative religiously, I mean like politically. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? But still, there are some. So that's all, you know, and I think the biggest thing I learned being more involved in the Muslim community, that there is much more diversity than I thought, politically, from liberals all the way to real hardcore conservatives. And I think most people haven't seen that within our community, but so.
Yeah, I don't know what to say to that.
Add something, come on.
I think that when we went to the Middle East, I don't want to make this look bad, but there was a little bit of a lack of curiosity, not only about their own religion but other people's religion. And I think living in a country that is overly religious, like some of these Middle Eastern countries, sort of close them off to almost their own religion, because they're just Muslim. They'll always be Muslim. There's not a question of anything else. And so they almost don't investigate enough in their own faith. And that's what I sort of was most surprised with. I was learning more about Islam, and I felt like I knew more than the average Joe. And I didn't even really grow up Muslim. I just have always been aware of it. Half my family's Muslim. I always read stuff about it, tried to learn as much as I could. And all of a sudden you're talking to a 25-year-old guy who not only doesn't know anything about Jews and Christians and others, but doesn't know that much about Islam. So you start to like grade everybody on a bell curve and just go, all right, people are people. Everybody's, just trying to get by. It's like, you just drop it. You just drop it. You just don't worry about it, and you just separate all that stuff from who they are.
But that's why we play Name That Religion. I mean, there were even a Christian minister who didn't know something that was in the Bible. So, except for real scholars, so many people don't know what's in their religious text. They don't know the details of it. They know the broad strokes and the good things that they like, and they might not know the bad things they don't like. And so it's very interesting when you go through that. So
yeah.
Okay, let's do one more question. Who wants to? Yes.
You mentioned in the movie, the film, that Muslim is a cultural thing, background. Are you able to distinguish between Arab culture and Muslim culture? Because it is different.
it depends what you mean. Like in the Middle East or here? I mean, I think in the Middle East they're so intertwined. Like when I go there, I see, I can't tell you where one begins and one ends. I just can't there. That's the.
Christians in Middle East.
No, of course you do.
I went to a Christmas.
Sure you do, but I don't see. But I mean, are you getting at? I understand there's different faiths, but just talking about like culturally, like when I taught a broad stroke about something, that. So maybe that's why I'm not following, because I've never lived there. I'm saying when I go there and. I'm not talking about religiously. There's differences, but I mean culturally, the people are there living with each other. I mean, I don't care what religion you are, Muslim, Jew, or Christian. You're going to haggle if you're an Arab over prices. That's just going to happen, right? I mean, that's what we see. You're going to smoke hookah. It doesn't matter what your religion is. That's the culture. Is it a Muslim thing? Is it intertwined? Perhaps. Is it Muslims want to sit around and do it? Are you going to eat, the food and treat each other with the same type of generosity and the way Arabs are so go out of their way to be warm and inviting to people. I don't know if it's Muslim, Jewish, or Christian. I never got a sense. To me, it's all intertwined. That's when I say it's intertwined. So I can't see a distinction. If I lived there, I bet I would see a distinction. But being there for a week at a time, 5 days at a time, I just don't see it. So that's all I'm saying. In America, there's certainly a difference between Arab Christians, Arab Muslims on certain things, and Arab Jews on certain things. But I see a lot of. Right. Right.
Oh well, non-Arab Muslim countries. You mean like Indonesia? You mean other Muslims?
I've never been there.
Yeah, I've never been there.
That's
either,
the problem.
Yeah, there's a big difference between there. Yeah.
Oh, I'm just saying it through the Arab world. I've never been to Malaysia, Indonesia, to other places where there are big Muslim populations that are not Arab. I don't know what the experience would be like. I would love to do shows there to see it firsthand, to be honest. So I can't speak to that, to be honest. But I mean, there's definitely, I can't. I wish I could go and see it. I think now I understand what your point is. I don't know the distinction that there is. I'm sure there is probably something.
Maybe the next film.
The next film, the Muslims are coming to Kuala Lumpur. That's our next film.
Yeah, let's just do one more question here.
I'm Jessica. I'm a film student. I was just wondering, when you were touring in the Middle East, and I guess mostly in the Middle East,
Did you encounter parents or anybody sort of in the educational sphere? Any venues like for like secondary school?
Like high schools? Or
Yeah.
Did we meet them? Or because we went to a lot of schools and did things, like we spoke and taught comedy and things like that. At university, we went to mostly university. We did stuff in various schools in that capacity. But what do you mean? Like what are you looking for? What were we?
Because I grew up in Texas.
Right.
And in a very pristine family.
Right.
And everybody there is so conservative, and like the PTA would be, up in arms about certain issues.
Sure.
And I feel like parents more than anybody else tend to be like sort of, very solid in their beliefs.
Rigid?
Rigid, yeah.
Unflexible? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying now. Most of our shows are young people come into our shows, frankly. And I notice exactly what you're saying, because I do a show with a Jewish comic called Stand Up for Peace. We perform at colleges mostly. And college students, and usually Muslim and Jewish college students sponsor it, we do the show. And generally, if we'll talk about being Arab and Muslim in America, and then sometimes we talk about the Middle East. And college students will come up to us and say, why isn't there peace in the Middle East yet? They'll ask us like that, like, I don't understand. Why? And then we'll do some shows for sometimes, every now and then for community leaders, and they'll come up to us and give us all the reasons why there can't be peace in the Middle East between Israel and Palestine. So younger people, and I know this is all the time, but 95% of our shows are with college students, so I feel much better and uplifted when I go do those shows because of that reaction. So you're right about that. And it comes to maybe older people think that they know the answer by then, and people in college are much more at a time in their life they're intellectually curious and want to know. But it's interesting. We have not interacted with like adults and stuff. The ones we have all been fine because they've been involved with the shows. Frankly, they've been producers. They make money. And have you had any interaction?
No, I taught like a little thing at that it's an audiovisual school. It's a film. It's a sound engineering. Yeah, in Jordan, it's called SAE. You know what SAE? They have schools everywhere. Anyway, their parents are always going to be involved everywhere you go, and everybody's always concerned with what their kids are doing. But once you go away from college, man, they're not around, bro. You got to do what you want, man. Here at USC campus. And don't get too proud. You guys haven't won a football game since last December. Since 2013. How do you guys feel about Pete Carroll? You for him? Pete Carroll? No? All right.
Well, listen, when I was growing up, one of my favorite films was History of the World, Mel Brooks, and he talks about the comedian as a stand-up philosopher. And I think, personally, the comedian has a rarefied place in our society as a prophetic voice that speaks truth to power. And I think this film beautifully illustrates that special role that comedians have in our society, and these two in particular do. So I'm very grateful for their eloquence, their humor, their wit, spending time with us this evening. And all that being said, please join me in thanking Dean Obeiallah, Aron, Krader, and thank you to all of you for coming this evening. Thanks.